I wasn't looking for secrets that day. All I wanted was the grocery list my husband said he'd saved on our shared iPad. But when the screen lit up, it wasn't tomatoes or milk I found. It was a message. I love you too, baby. Few words. That's all it took for the room to go quiet, for my hands to go cold, and for the man I thought I knew to disappear in an instant. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the iPad. I just stared at those words, and something inside me shifted, not from heartbreak, but from clarity. Because if he thought I'd never find out, he was about to learn who I really was. Before I tell you what I did next, take a second to subscribe and let me know where you're watching from, because this story starts with silence, but it doesn't stay quiet for long. Now let's get into it. They say betrayal hits hardest when it comes out of nowhere, and I suppose that's why my hands went cold that afternoon, because I wasn't looking for anything. I was just trying to check the grocery list Marcus said he'd saved on the shared iPad, the one we kept in the kitchen drawer near the fridge. I hadn't even changed out of my work-from-home pajamas yet, hair still wet from the shower, socks mismatched. It was a Tuesday like any other. Marcus had left for work that morning with his usual routine. Black coffee in a thermal mug. Quick kiss on the forehead. His tie was crooked. I fixed it. He joked that he'd never get promoted if he couldn't dress himself. I told him it had nothing to do with his tie. We laughed. He walked out. Nothing strange. But the second I opened that iPad, everything in my world began to tilt. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't suspicious. I typed in our passcode, his birthday, not mine, and pulled up the Notes app. Grocery list, grocery list, grocery list. Instead, my eyes caught something else. A text preview, sliding down from the top. I love you too, baby. That's all it said. 10 words, the kind of thing that would make someone else's heart flutter. Mine? It stopped. The name on the sender ID was just the letter K, not even a full name. I blinked. It was like my brain buffered, trying to load a reality it had no framework for. He never used words like that with me. He wasn't that type. No baby talk, no hearts. If he ever said, I love you in a message, it was usually in a dry love you too way, the kind of thing you toss into a routine text exchange about dinner plans. But this wasn't ours. This was someone else's language, someone else's Marcus. I didn't click the message. I didn't want to mark it read. Instead, I slowly took out my phone, snapped a photo of the screen, and emailed it to myself with no subject line. Then I placed the iPad back where I found it, closed the drawer softly, and stared at the fridge like it had betrayed me, too. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't crying. Not yet. Something colder than pain was settling into me, a numbness, a freeze before the storm. That night, I made dinner like usual. Mia was working on her science project at the kitchen table, glue and glitter everywhere. I smiled and helped her cut shapes. Marcus got home just after 7, loosened his tie, and kissed my cheek. He smelled like that same citrusy cologne he always wore, safe, familiar. He didn't look guilty, didn't stutter or fumble. He asked what was for dinner. Commented on the mess Mia had made, laughed at a meme I showed him. He was normal, and maybe that was the most terrifying part. I couldn't eat much. My fork just pushed rice around on my plate, but I kept the smile on. I even leaned into his shoulder when we watched a rerun of some home renovation show we both liked. He put his arm around me. I almost let myself believe nothing had changed. But that night, when he fell asleep next to me, breathing slow and steady, I lay there with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I felt like I was floating outside of myself. The next morning, I got up before him, showered, got Mia ready for school, made his coffee just the way he liked it. When he left, I waved like always. Then I sat down at the dining table, opened my laptop, and made a new folder. I named it K Archive. I didn't know what I would find yet, but I was going to look. I checked our shared phone plan account. I knew the login by heart. I paid the bills. I filtered Marcus's messages. There were no texts listed to anyone named K, but one number stood out. A recurring caller and texter, area code I didn't recognize. Every day, sometimes multiple times, late nights, early mornings, Sundays, I copied the number into Google. LinkedIn hit. A staff directory. I froze. Kayla Morris, 27, executive assistant, newly hired at Marcus's firm last fall, former intern. I remembered her, vaguely. She was at the company's Christmas dinner, slim, blonde, hyper-friendly. She had complimented my earrings and said she loved my energy. That felt like a lifetime ago. Suddenly, all those extra hours Marcus had been working made more sense. I could have called him, screamed, cried, but the truth was, I didn't want to fight. I didn't want a dramatic confrontation that he could twist into guilt or blame. I wanted to know. So I decided something right then, sitting there in the silence of our home, coffee cooling beside me. I would not be the woman who found out and fell apart. I would be the one who found out and documented everything, in silence, in full control. I remembered something my mother once told me. She said, "If you ever find yourself walking through fire, don't run, walk slow, gather your things, and come out holding the match." I never knew what she meant until now, so I started gathering. I searched our shared photo storage. I checked for old screenshots, message backups. Looked at our digital assistant app to see what he'd scheduled. There was a hotel reservation for a leadership seminar next weekend. Charlotte, North Carolina. Marcus never mentioned it. I opened our travel rewards account. There it was, booked under his name. 2 guests. I stared at the screen. My reflection in the dark surface looked like someone I didn't recognize. Eyes too wide, lips too tight. I didn't cry. I clicked save. I printed it. I added it to the folder. That night, I told him he looked tired. I made his favorite pasta. I rubbed his shoulders while he vented about a budget review at work. All the while, I was memorizing the new version of my husband, and I was preparing to do something he'd never expect. Nothing. Not yet. Because sometimes the best revenge doesn't come in fire. It comes in silence, with receipts. There's a kind of calm that doesn't feel like peace. It feels like a storm that hasn't made landfall yet. That was the kind of calm that settled into me in the days after I saw that message. I wasn't spiraling. I wasn't screaming into a pillow or downing wine like the women in TV dramas. I was still cooking breakfast, still signing school permission slips, still asking Marcus if he wanted almond milk or regular in his coffee. But inside, I was building something. Quietly, precisely. I wasn't entirely sure what I was doing at first. I just knew I had to keep going. Curiosity wasn't driving me. It was instinct, self-preservation. The moment you know something's rotting under the floorboards, you can't help but start peeling back planks. So I started small. First, I checked our bank statements. I had access to the login. Marcus never cared about money management. He liked to pretend numbers handled themselves. But I knew every bill, every automatic payment, so it didn't take much effort to spot the anomalies. A charge at a boutique flower shop across town, one we never used. 2 dinner bills at a restaurant we hadn't visited together in over a year. An Uber trip from his office to an address I didn't recognize. At 11:40 p.m. on a Friday, he said he was working late. I started a spreadsheet. I labeled it, "Maybe Nothing." It felt easier to digest that way, like I was still giving him the benefit of the doubt. But my hands didn't shake anymore when I typed each entry. I felt sharp, focused, almost surgical. Next, I looked through our shared photo cloud. Marcus wasn't tech-savvy. He didn't realize that if you don't turn off auto-sync, your iPhone shares everything, even deleted items. And there it was, a blurry picture taken in a hotel mirror, his tie slightly loosened, a wine bottle on the nightstand, 2 glasses. It had been deleted, but not before it synced. I saved it, dragged it into my folder labeled K Archive. I didn't need a confession. I needed facts. I still hadn't confronted him. It wasn't because I was scared. It was because I hadn't finished mapping the full picture yet. And something inside me refused to act until I could see it clearly. One morning, while Mia was at school and Marcus had already left, I walked into our bedroom with a tape measure. I measured the width of our closet shelves, the drawer dimensions. Then I drove to a storage facility 20 minutes away and rented a small unit. I told myself I wasn't planning anything drastic. I just needed options. A safe place to store certain things, important documents, keepsakes, things that belonged to me and Mia. I started transferring items over slowly, quietly. Birth certificates, my jewelry box, photo albums, my grandmother's quilt. I bought a prepaid phone and registered it under a fake name. Synced it with my cloud so I could back everything up there too. It felt insane, even as I did it. But something about it soothed me. I was preparing, not just emotionally, but tactically. At night, I still kissed him, still laughed at his dry jokes, still handed him the remote without bitterness. But every time he looked at me, I wondered what version of me he saw. Did he still think I was blind? Oblivious? Did he think I'd never catch on? Sometimes, when he was in the shower, I'd stare at his phone charging on the nightstand, but I never touched it. I didn't need to. The truth had already spilled in a dozen other places, and if I'd learned anything, it was that men like Marcus never really cover their tracks. They just convince themselves no one's looking. A week after the first message, I noticed he'd changed his phone's passcode. That told me everything I needed to know. He was slipping, starting to sense a shift in the air. Good. I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney, Julia Lynn. She came highly recommended by a friend of mine who'd been through hell with her own ex. Julia didn't blink when I laid out my evidence. In fact, she nodded slowly and said, "You're doing this smart. Emotion later. Paperwork first." Her confidence calmed me even more. She told me exactly what to gather: account numbers, retirement details, a list of valuables, and anything he might try to hide if this went sideways. I followed instructions to the letter. One night, after putting Mia to bed, I logged into our joint email and saw a confirmation from a luxury hotel in Charlotte. 2 nights. King Suite. The same weekend, he'd told me he'd be attending a finance summit. He hadn't booked a flight. He was planning to drive, probably so no one at work would ask questions about Kayla's sudden travel plans. I stared at the confirmation email for a full 5 minutes. Then I printed it. That Friday, I casually asked Marcus if he needed anything packed. He smiled like I was the best wife in the world and said, "Nah, just the usual stuff. Nothing fancy." I watched him load his overnight bag in the trunk, watched him fix his hair in the rearview mirror like a teenager about to see his crush, watched him pull away from our driveway with the same relaxed wave he'd given me every day for 13 years. I went back inside, poured myself a cup of tea, and opened my folder. There were over 20 files now. Messages, receipts, photos, screenshots, maps, enough to destroy him. But I wasn't interested in destruction. Not really. I just wanted to be ready, to leave before he realized I'd already emotionally moved out. And the strangest part of all, the calmer I got, the more scared I became of that calm, because it meant I wasn't afraid to walk away anymore. I was just waiting for the right moment. It was a Thursday when I decided to stop hiding behind the screen. For over a week, I'd been gathering evidence, mapping patterns, backing up files, playing the role of the composed wife while silently preparing for a life without Marcus. But I needed to see her, not through text previews or blurry photos. I wanted to look Kayla Morris in the eyes, not to confront her, just to understand what kind of woman my husband had thrown away our family for. Marcus had mentioned in passing that his team would be having an extended lunch break that day to celebrate the close of a big quarterly deal. He didn't give many details, said it would be casual, maybe burgers at a bar nearby. I knew better. This wasn't a social lunch. It was a victory lap, and Kayla would be there. So I dressed intentionally. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. A neutral blouse, clean jeans, ballet flats. Makeup just enough to look rested. Not glamorous, just grounded. The kind of woman who walks into a room and doesn't need to raise her voice to be noticed. I texted Marcus late that morning. "Thinking of surprising you for lunch. What's the spot?" He replied 5 minutes later. The message was short. "Already at the place, loud and crowded. Better to skip, but let's do something later this weekend?" Translation. He was panicking. I replied with a smiley face and didn't say another word. Then I drove to the restaurant anyway. It wasn't hard to spot them. Corner booth, half-finished fries, 3 people on one side, 2 on the other. Marcus was in the middle, his sleeves rolled up, laughing louder than he usually did. And there she was, sitting across from him, Kayla. You know how sometimes people smile too much? That was her. Always grinning, like she'd practiced her expressions in the mirror and chosen the one she thought made her look harmless. I stood at the host's podium long enough for a few heads to turn, long enough for Marcus to see me, his smile cracked. I didn't wave. I didn't walk over. I just tilted my head slightly. He knew what that meant. I was clocking her. And she saw me too. She looked confused at first, then forced another grin. The kind of look you give someone whose name you can't remember but who remembers yours. I turned and left. Didn't make a scene. Didn't need to. Marcus called me 20 minutes later. I didn't answer. He texted, "That wasn't what it looked like." I stared at the message. My thumb hovered over the screen for a few seconds before I typed back, "I never said it looked like anything." He called again. I declined. That night, he came home with flowers. I didn't comment, just placed them in a vase like always. As if they were any other generic apology. We ate dinner with Mia like nothing happened. He tried to touch my hand under the table, but I pulled away gently. Not rudely, just enough to register. He was sweating. Later, after Mia went to bed, he started with the usual small talk. Work stress, coworkers. You know how chaotic it gets end of quarter. I nodded. Then he said it. Casually, as if testing the air. "You know Kayla, right, from work? She was at the lunch. That's probably who you saw." I didn't blink. "Oh," I said. She seemed confident. He chuckled nervously. "Yeah, she's a character." That was it. That was all he offered. He didn't deny. He didn't confess. He hovered in that gray space where cowards hide, the place between truth and lies, and I let him stay there, because I wasn't done gathering. The next day, I stopped by his office during his lunch hour, brought him his favorite pastry and a coffee. He wasn't there, but Kayla was, at the reception desk. She stood when she saw me. "Hi, you must be Elena, Marcus's wife, right? He talks about you all the time." Her voice was syrupy, her smile too practiced. "I'm Kayla," she added, extending a hand. I shook it. Her palm was dry. She had a slight tremor in her fingers. "He's just running out to grab something. Should be back soon." I nodded. "No problem. Just wanted to drop this off. I'll leave it on his desk." "Oh, I can take it." "No," I said, cutting her off gently. "I'd like to place it myself." She didn't argue. I walked past her, placed the coffee and pastry on his desk, and took a quick glance around. Nothing out of place, no personal effects, no photos, no trace of her. But I knew better now. As I turned to leave, she called out, "It's nice to finally meet you." I paused. "Likewise," I said, then added, "You have a beautiful smile." "Really, but you might want to practice a few expressions that aren't rehearsed. They'll serve you better in the long run." Her smile faltered. I walked out. That evening, Marcus came home earlier than usual. He had takeout in hand and a bottle of wine. Said he wanted to spend the night in. I agreed. We sat on the couch while Mia read in her room. He put on a documentary, but I could tell he wasn't watching. His eyes kept flicking over to me, like he was trying to read something he couldn't quite make out. Halfway through, he paused the show. "Is something wrong?" I looked at him. "Do you think something should be?" He hesitated. "You've been quiet lately." I nodded slowly. "Maybe I've just been thinking." "About what?" he asked. I shrugged. "About how some people smile with their whole face and some people smile just with their teeth." He didn't answer. Later that night, I watched him sleep. His mouth slightly open, his breath steady, and I realized something. He wasn't worried I'd leave him. He was only worried about when, and I planned to make that timing entirely mine, because the next move wouldn't come from suspicion or emotion. It would come from a place far more powerful: certainty. Marcus left on a Friday. He packed light: 2 dress shirts, 1 pair of slacks, a leather toiletry bag, and his laptop. The same black overnight bag he always used when he had so-called out-of-town meetings. Nothing about him seemed off. In fact, he was overly relaxed, chatty even. "They've got me doing this leadership summit thing again," he said over breakfast. "Boring as hell, but apparently it looks good on paper." I nodded. "You're good at looking good on paper." He laughed, not catching the double edge. "Be back Sunday evening." "I'll keep dinner warm." He kissed my forehead like it was any other weekend trip. Mia ran out to hug him before school. He told her to behave, promised a souvenir. Then he was gone. I stood in the doorway watching him back out of the driveway, his smile still plastered on his face, like everything was perfectly in place. But it wasn't. Because 20 minutes after he left, I got in my car and followed. I wasn't reckless. I waited, gave him distance, took the back road out of town and watched his taillights from 3 cars behind. He didn't notice. Of course he didn't. Marcus had never seen me as the type to keep score. That was his mistake. The drive to Charlotte was uneventful. 3 hours of silence and podcasts I didn't really listen to. My stomach was tight, my chest locked, but my mind focused. I had printed directions to the hotel. I already knew where he'd booked his room. King suite, 2nd floor, corner view. I'd called earlier pretending to be him and confirm the reservation. I arrived at the hotel about 20 minutes after he did, parked on the far side of the lot, behind a delivery van. My car was silver, blended in. He wouldn't notice. Not unless he was looking. And Marcus never looked unless it was for himself. From across the lot, I watched him get out of the car and stretch. He checked his phone, smiled, then leaned against the hood like he was waiting. Less than 5 minutes later, another car pulled in. A sleek navy blue Lexus with tinted windows. Kayla. She stepped out wearing black jeans, a cropped sweater, and the kind of heels that clicked with too much confidence. She walked straight into his arms like it wasn't her first time. He kissed her, full on, hands around her waist, not a hug, not a polite cheek kiss. The kind of kiss you give someone you think you deserve. I didn't cry. I didn't blink. I took photos, zoomed in. Perfectly clear, time-stamped. Then I sat there and waited. They walked into the lobby like a couple checking in for a honeymoon. She had a small suitcase. He carried nothing but his smugness. At the desk, they laughed at something. The clerk handed over a room key. They headed toward the elevators. I waited 30 minutes. Then I went inside. The lobby was quiet, businesslike. A few guests on laptops, a man reading a newspaper. No one looked up when I walked in. I went to the front desk, smiled at the clerk. "I think I dropped something in the parking lot earlier," I said. "My husband just checked in, Marcus Harper. Could you confirm the room number? I don't want to bother him if he's already settled." The clerk, young and nervous, checked the screen. "Room 214. Perfect. I thanked him, turned, and walked out. I had no intention of going to the room. I wasn't here to confront. I was here to witness. Back in the car, I pulled up the voice recorder app on my phone and let it run as I dictated everything I saw. Every movement, every exchange. I described the setting, the hotel layout, their body language, what she wore, how he kissed her, even the way they avoided looking over their shoulders. This wasn't just betrayal. This was confidence in betrayal. That made it worse. I drove back home that night without incident. No music, just the hum of the road and my breathing. The city lights blurred in my periphery. When I got home, Mia was at my sister's house for a sleepover. I had the place to myself. It was quiet, too quiet. I went straight to the computer and uploaded the photos, renamed the files, organized the folder, added the new timestamp documentation, printed everything, stored it in a new labeled envelope. Charlotte trip. Then I poured a glass of wine, sat on the couch, and stared at the man smiling in our framed family photo. He had no idea what was coming. 2 days later, he returned, right on schedule. Same fake energy, same easy tone. "Miss me?" I smiled. "Of course." He handed Mia a snow globe from a gas station gift shop. Hugged her. Gave me a kiss that tasted like arrogance. Told me he was starving, hadn't eaten all day. I made him a sandwich. He showered, changed into joggers, sat on the couch, flipped through the TV like nothing had changed. And for him, nothing had. That was the beauty of it. He didn't know he was already caught. He didn't know I had pictures of him with her, time-stamped and backed up in 3 locations. He didn't know I had already met with Julia again and set a plan in motion. Asset protection, custody strategy, timeline. He didn't know about the second storage unit I had rented that weekend, the one where I moved the rest of my personal valuables and Mia's keepsakes. He didn't know about the burner phone now sitting in my locked drawer, or the backup keys I had made for my car and hidden at a friend's. He didn't know I had stopped loving him the moment I saw that second kiss, the one outside the elevator when she looked up at him like he was a prize she'd won. He didn't know I was preparing to let him go, and I wasn't going to tell him, not yet, because letting someone go doesn't always look like packing bags or yelling in the driveway. Sometimes it looks like feeding them dinner, smiling sweetly and sleeping next to them like you still care. And when it's time to walk away, you do it clean, without noise, without warning. Because the loudest goodbye is the one they never see coming. I had always believed that destruction came with noise, shouting matches, slammed doors, messy heartbreak. But as it turned out, the most devastating truths were delivered in silence, and that was the plan now. No screaming, no fights, just truth. Quiet and heavy. After that Charlotte weekend, I gave Marcus exactly 1 week. 1 week to sit in his lie, wear it to work, brush his teeth with it in the morning, kiss Mia goodnight with it still fresh on his mouth. I wanted him to have those days because they were the last he'd ever spend believing I knew nothing. Every night, I waited, not passively, but actively, strategically. While he watched TV, I finalized copies of the documents. I placed a second set in the safe deposit box I'd opened at the bank under my name only. I had receipts, hotel confirmations, photos, texts, cloud backups, even a drafted breakdown of marital assets, and a proposed custody plan Julia had prepared. I wasn't preparing for war. I was preparing for extraction. And then, finally, the right opportunity came. It was a Saturday afternoon. We were hosting a small gathering, something Marcus insisted on throwing to bring some normalcy back to the house. A few colleagues, a couple of neighbors, some work friends of his I barely knew. I didn't argue. It was perfect. The night before, I made sure the house was spotless. Mia was spending the weekend with her cousins. I wanted nothing to distract from what was coming. Marcus woke up chipper that morning, played music while he ironed his shirt, told me I looked stunning in that dress I hadn't worn in months, poured me orange juice. I smiled, told him he looked handsome. He kissed my cheek. We're a good team, aren't we? I looked him dead in the eye. We were, I said. He laughed, thinking I was joking. By 6 o'clock, the house was full. Wine glasses clinked. Laughter floated through the rooms. I stood in the kitchen, replenishing the cheese board, waiting for the right moment. It came when someone raised a toast to Marcus. Something about his team's quarterly win. Everyone turned to him, raising their glasses. He blushed, modest, tried to deflect the attention. I stepped forward. If I may, I said, holding my wine glass, I'd like to add something. The room fell into a hush. Marcus's smile tightened. I'd like to toast my husband Marcus, I continued, keeping my voice steady, not just for his performance at work, but for his commitment to multitasking, balancing his role as a devoted husband with his after-hours pursuits. A few polite laughs, nervous glances. Some of you may not know, I went on, but Marcus recently attended a leadership summit in Charlotte. He roomed in the King Suite, not alone, of course. Kayla Morris sends her regards. There was a pause, then sharp inhalations, chairs shifting. Marcus's face drained of color. I pulled a single envelope from the sideboard, placed it gently on the coffee table. In here, I said, you'll find everything. Dates, receipts, photos. I won't bore you with the slideshow, but I will say this. If you're going to cheat, Marcus, you might want to reconsider backing up your phone to the family iCloud. A few chuckles. One outright gasp. I didn't wait for him to respond. I turned to the guests. I apologize for the drama. Feel free to finish your drinks before you go. I won't be staying long. I walked to the bedroom, closed the door, picked up the bag I'd packed the night before. One suitcase, one backpack with my documents. The car keys already in my pocket. 10 minutes later, I heard the door open behind me. "Elena," Marcus whispered. "What are you doing?" I turned. "I'm leaving." He laughed, a panicked, choking sound. "You're being dramatic." I opened the bedroom door. The living room had mostly cleared out. A few stunned guests whispered near the entrance. No one dared make eye contact. "Am I?" I asked. He followed me as I wheeled my bag toward the door. "Can we just talk? Just for a minute?" I stopped. "Talk now? After months of lying? After making our house a stage set for your little soap opera?" He opened his mouth, closed it again. "I didn't destroy you, Marcus," I said. "You did that yourself. All I did was make sure you saw it." Then I left. I drove to a hotel across town. Julia had already secured temporary lodging for me through a client's real estate network. A furnished apartment would be ready by Monday. Mia would return to me on Sunday night. Marcus would be served divorce papers by Tuesday morning. And by Wednesday, I'd officially changed all the passwords. The fallout was faster than I expected. By Monday, the HR department at Marcus's firm had received an anonymous report, detailed, time-stamped, and carefully worded to suggest a misuse of company funds and professional misconduct. I didn't send it myself, but someone did. Maybe a guest from the party. Maybe someone in Kayla's circle who had finally seen enough. Word travels. By Thursday, Kayla was on administrative leave. By Friday, Marcus's manager asked him to take a step back while they reviewed the matter. He called me that night. First to yell, then to plead. "I made a mistake," he said. "It didn't mean anything. You blindsided me." "No," I said. "You blinded yourself." He begged to meet. I refused. I had nothing else to say, nothing more to give. Let the truth do the work. Because I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in reality. And now, he had no choice but to live in it. There were no police sirens, no screaming matches in the street, no dramatic courtroom showdowns. Marcus's world didn't explode. It crumbled. Quietly, piece by piece. That was the best part. He thought that once I walked out of that party, the worst had passed. That he'd weather the embarrassment, send out a few apologies, play the victim to his friends, claim it was just an emotional lapse. Maybe Kayla would lie low and he'd ride it out. He had always been good at repackaging his messes into misunderstandings, but not this time, because the truth had taken root, and once it starts growing, it's impossible to bury. The Monday after I left, Marcus showed up at work and found silence waiting for him. Not angry silence, worse. The kind that comes from people who already know what you did, who had read the messages, who had seen the photos. Someone had shared the contents of the envelope. Not the original, of course. That one was still in his drawer. But someone had taken photos that night. Or maybe screenshots. Maybe one of his trusted coworkers no longer trusted him. Either way, it spread. The woman in HR, a middle-aged professional named Renee, who always wore taupe heels and didn't tolerate nonsense, called him in at 2:30 p.m. sharp. According to a mutual friend from the firm, the meeting lasted 22 minutes. By the time it ended, Kayla had been suspended pending investigation. Marcus had been stripped of client contact privileges to protect the company's reputation. A review of expense reports had been opened. That evening, he texted me, "They're making this into something it's not. I think I'm going to be asked to resign." I didn't respond. The next day, he came home to an empty closet. Not entirely, just my half, my side of the drawers, my shoes, my jewelry box. The frames with family photos on the hallway wall were replaced with blank nails. The kitchen was still stocked, but the shelves where I kept my baking tools were bare. He called me 3 times. No answer. Then he emailed. "Elena, please, can we talk? Just 30 minutes, anywhere you want. I need to explain." I replied with a single line. The divorce petition is with the court. You'll be served within 48 hours. He didn't reply. Not that night, not the next. On Friday, Mia came back to me. She'd been staying at my sister's since the fallout. I hadn't told her everything yet, just enough to explain that her father and I wouldn't be living together for a while. She didn't ask many questions, but she watched me closely, like she was learning something she couldn't quite put into words. We moved into the temporary apartment that weekend. Small, clean, safe. A 2-bedroom on the top floor of a quiet complex. It had no history, no shadows, just sunlight and a blank canvas. The first night, Mia asked if we could make pancakes for dinner. Absolutely, I said. And we did. Back at Marcus's firm, the dominoes kept falling. Someone anonymously submitted a tip to the compliance department, allegations of favoritism, questions about hiring procedures. Kayla's internship had come up under scrutiny. It turned out Marcus had fast-tracked her application, made phone calls, pushed her name ahead of others. That, paired with the romantic involvement, was more than enough to spark a full review. His manager, Kenley Price, the man Marcus had been sucking up to for years, stopped returning his calls. HR no longer copied him on department updates. Within 10 days, Marcus had been officially asked to resign. No press release, no farewell email, just a quiet exit and a security escort from the building. He messaged me that afternoon. "You got what you wanted." I didn't answer, because I hadn't wanted this. Not the scandal, not the job loss, not the humiliation. All I had ever wanted was the truth. I gave him every opportunity to protect what we had. He chose not to. The following week, the community whispers began. Our neighborhood wasn't known for gossip, but people talk, especially when the husband of a well-liked PTA mom is caught having an affair with his assistant and loses his job over it. I didn't feed the story. I didn't deny it either. When people asked, I just smiled and said, "Some choices have consequences." Marcus tried to do damage control, claimed it was a misunderstanding, that it had only happened once, that we'd been drifting anyway, that I had overreacted, but no one bought it, because the photos didn't lie. The timeline didn't lie. The smile on Kayla's face in that hotel lobby didn't lie. He had betrayed his marriage with arrogance, not regret. Kayla, for her part, went silent. She posted a few cryptic quotes on her social media, things about growth, self-worth, how people shouldn't judge what they don't understand. No one commented. Eventually, her accounts disappeared altogether. Mia didn't ask to see her father much. She still loved him, of course she did, but something in her had shifted. I could see it in the way she referred to him. Less enthusiastic, less warm. She didn't call him Daddy anymore. Just Dad. He tried, for a little while. Sent gifts, left voicemails, showed up unannounced once, standing awkwardly at the door with a box of cookies. I let Mia decide if she wanted to see him. She said she wasn't ready. He didn't push after that. By the end of the month, his world had shrunk. No job, no family under his roof, no colleagues inviting him out for drinks. He had moved into a rental condo near the industrial park. His car was the same, but he drove it slower. A man once full of himself now looked like a deflated balloon, still wearing the same tailored clothes, but they hung off his frame differently, like they no longer belonged to him. And still, I said nothing. No texts, no calls, no retaliatory jabs. I didn't need them, because silence was doing all the talking. His friends stopped checking in. Our mutual acquaintances leaned toward me. Even his own mother, when she finally called, said in a voice low with shame, "I'm sorry, Elena. I raised him better." I told her it wasn't her fault. She cried. That's how I knew Marcus had lost everything. Not just the tangible things, but the benefit of the doubt. The quiet faith people extend to you when they think you're a decent man. He didn't even have that anymore. And I hadn't needed to lift a finger to make it happen. The truth did it all. Slowly, quietly, completely. There's a moment in every long relationship, every marriage, where the rhythm becomes second nature. Not love, not even trust, just routine, familiarity. You know what time the other person wakes up, how they take their coffee, which drawer they keep their socks in. And then one day, you're folding laundry and realize none of it means anything anymore. That was the moment I knew it was time to finish what I'd started. Not in anger, not even in heartbreak, just in certainty. The day after Marcus was forced to resign, I went to the courthouse. I arrived just before lunch, the documents Julia had drawn up pressed flat in a manila envelope under my arm. Everything had been carefully reviewed. The custody structure, financial disclosures, asset division, nothing messy, nothing impulsive, just business. I submitted the petition with a calm expression and a firm signature. The clerk stamped the pages. It was official, a process now in motion. No more chances, no more hesitation. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't even feel hollow. I made dinner. Mia and I watched a movie. I tucked her in, and then I poured myself a glass of water and sat by the window. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was free. Marcus was served 3 days later. According to the process server, he answered the door in a wrinkled t-shirt and looked like he hadn't slept. He didn't argue, just accepted the envelope and nodded once before closing the door. Later that night, he called. "Elena," he said. His voice cracked and low. "Please, can we talk? I didn't think you'd actually—" "You didn't think I'd leave," I said. "That's different." "I made a mistake." "No, you made a series of choices. You don't get to call it a mistake just because it finally cost you something." He was quiet for a long time. "Can I see Mia?" "You can talk to Julia about visitation. She has the schedule." "Elena, do you hate me?" I didn't answer that. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because it didn't matter. Hate is just another way to hold on, and I had let go. I ended the call, blocked the number. That was the last time I heard his voice. From then on, all communication went through lawyers. I returned the keys to our old house, canceled all joint accounts, changed my name on everything back to Harper, but this time not because it was his, because it was mine. I did it all without tears. I told Mia the truth in pieces, enough for her to understand without planting seeds of hate. I told her that sometimes people we love make bad choices, that it wasn't her fault, that she was loved. She nodded, cried a little, then asked if we could paint her new room. I said yes. We painted it yellow. In the weeks that followed, I started building a new version of my life. Not flashy, not loud, just steady. I took on a new project management client, set up a home office in the spare room, got into the habit of walking every morning before Mia woke up. I'd pass by homes with lights just turning on, coffee brewing, kids rushing out the door. And I felt okay. Not amazing, not healed, just okay. And that was more than enough. Marcus tried for a little while to maintain a clean image. He posted vague messages about growth, accountability, the importance of private healing. But no one engaged. His followers dwindled. The sympathy he expected never came, because he'd been exposed by something no PR strategy could cover: evidence. Eventually, even his silence became irrelevant. He stopped trying. I heard from Julia that he'd listed the condo. Too expensive. He was looking at smaller places near the edge of town. Kayla was no longer in the picture. No one knew exactly when that ended. It didn't matter. He didn't get the redemption arc he hoped for, because he never earned it. One afternoon, I stood outside the old house, waiting for Mia to come out after her visitation weekend. Marcus opened the door. We made eye contact. Just a second. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. Neither did I. Mia came running out with her backpack. I helped her into the car. As I drove away, I checked the rear-view mirror. He was still standing there, framed in the doorway of the house he used to think he owned in every way. But I didn't slam that door when I left. I just didn't walk back through it. And that was enough. It was a Monday morning like any other. I was sorting laundry, half watching a documentary on my laptop while Mia colored quietly in the next room. The new apartment still smelled faintly like fresh paint and detergent, and I was just starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, peace wasn't a myth. Then my phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. Georgia area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something, curiosity, instinct, maybe just a lingering thread of unfinished business, made me swipe to answer. Hello? There was a pause, a breath. Hi. Is this Elena? I didn't recognize the voice at first. It was soft, tentative. This is Kayla. I froze. Not because I was surprised she called, but because I had never imagined what she'd sound like when she wasn't smiling. I know I probably shouldn't be calling, she said quickly, words tumbling out. I'm not trying to cause more problems. I didn't know who else to talk to. There was a pause. I'm listening, I said, calm even. I didn't know he was married, she whispered. Not at first. You didn't know, or you didn't ask. She didn't answer right away. I heard her inhale sharply. I should have asked, but I didn't. He said he was separated, that you were still living together for your daughter's sake, that you both agreed it was temporary. I didn't interrupt. He said the divorce just hadn't gone through yet. I closed my eyes. It wasn't new information, but hearing it spoken aloud made it sting in a new way. I believed him, she continued. And by the time I started suspecting it wasn't true, I was already in too deep. I didn't know how to back out. That's not true, I said. You just didn't want to be the one who walked away. Another silence. I'm pregnant. There it was. I didn't say anything. I waited. He doesn't know yet, she said. I found out 2 weeks ago. I was going to tell him last weekend, but then everything happened. The party, your speech, the fallout. Her voice cracked. I could hear her trying to hold it together. I don't want anything from you, she said quickly. I'm not asking for advice. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore, and I didn't have anyone else who'd understand. I took a long breath, measured. You're right, I said finally. You don't know who you are right now, but you will. She sniffed. Do you think I ruined your life? No, I said. He did that all on his own. You just made it easier for him. Another beat passed. Then, she said, almost inaudibly, I'm sorry. It didn't feel like a performance. There was no drama in her voice, no self-pity, just the plain, brutal exhaustion of someone who finally saw their reflection and didn't recognize it. I believe you, I said. We didn't speak for nearly a minute, just silence between two women on opposite ends of a disaster. Whatever you decide, I added, make sure you don't let him shape the narrative. Get your proof early. Protect yourself. She exhaled a laugh, brittle and hollow. Funny, that's exactly what you did. Exactly. She thanked me, not with emotion, just quietly, sincerely. Then she hung up. I stared at the screen for a long while. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel smug. I didn't even feel angry anymore. What I felt was something closer to relief, because for the first time I heard from the other side of the wreckage, and it confirmed everything I already knew. Marcus hadn't just betrayed me. He had manipulated her, too. She wasn't innocent, but she wasn't his equal in guilt either. She was another casualty of his selfishness. I told no one about the call, not Julia, not my sister, not even my closest friend. It didn't feel like a piece of gossip. It felt like a closed chapter. That night, I made dinner while Mia did her homework. I tucked her in and read her favorite bedtime book. Afterward, I sat on the couch in my pajama pants, scrolled through home listings, and marked a few for later. Then I poured a glass of tea and watched the sky fade from blue to dark. The phone didn't ring again, and I didn't need it to. Some doors don't need to be slammed shut. Some just close quietly and stay closed forever. The apartment wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, beige walls, laminate floors that clicked under your heels. The kitchen didn't have a dishwasher, and the ceiling in the hallway creaked when the neighbor upstairs paced at night. But it was mine. No echoes of fights behind closed doors. No cold silences at the breakfast table. No hollow apologies. Just space. Quiet. routine on my terms. I painted the walls, nothing dramatic, soft greens, muted creams, calming colors. I let Mia choose her own shade for her bedroom, a punchy coral she insisted was happy. It suited her. We hung up new pictures, none from the past, just photos from our girls' weekend to Savannah, a snapshot of our dog sitting lopsided in a Halloween costume, drawings Mia had done on printer paper and taped to the fridge. I donated most of my old furniture. The king-size bed, the leather couch Marcus loved, the mirror from our hallway where he used to adjust his tie before work, the headboard he picked from a catalog without asking my opinion, gone. The wine rack he said made us look like grown-ups, gone. The rug I never liked but kept for the sake of compromise, rolled it up and gave it to the neighbor. It was like shedding a skin that no longer fit. I kept the coffee table, though, not because it was sentimental, but because it was scratched up, lopsided, and utterly practical. It felt honest, like me. I started cooking again, not just for survival, but for the joy of it. Recipes I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. Mushroom risotto, Vietnamese pho, an almond cake with a brittle crust that took me 3 tries to get right, homemade hummus that Mia smeared all over crackers, chicken noodle soup with a broth I boiled from scratch. Some days the food was great. Others we ordered pizza and laughed about the disaster. Mia helped. Sometimes she just stirred the pot. Other times she danced in her socks across the kitchen tiles while I chopped garlic. It became our ritual. No TV, no distractions, just music and food and the comfort of normalcy. She had a playlist on my phone she named Spaghetti Songs. We listened to it every Wednesday while boiling noodles. I picked up a freelance contract with a client in Atlanta. Project management, remote, flexible hours. It didn't pay what Marcus's job had, but it was consistent. It was enough. And more than that, it was mine. I set the deadlines, I made the calls, I decided when the workday ended. For the first time in years, I opened a bank account in only my name. I checked the balance daily at first, not because I feared it would vanish, but because I was proud. Every dollar in that account was mine, earned, accounted for, secure. The divorce proceedings moved forward without disruption. Julia was a steady guide. Marcus, through his lawyer, didn't contest much. Perhaps he knew he couldn't. Perhaps he just didn't have the energy. We agreed on joint legal custody. Mia would stay with me primarily. He would get weekends, holidays split evenly. I didn't fight him. I didn't need to, because I'd already won the one thing I truly wanted: peace. Peace from doubt. Peace from double-checking stories. Peace from the feeling of being second place in my own marriage. I started sleeping better, not instantly, but gradually. I stopped waking up at 2 a.m. in cold sweats, stopped flinching when my phone buzzed, stopped checking Marcus's location like I used to, even when I told myself I wasn't. I let go. I let myself rest. I let myself hope. One Sunday, Mia and I visited a farmer's market. She begged for kettle corn. I bought 2 bags. She found a vendor selling hand-painted plant pots and insisted I get one. "You need something alive," she said, serious as a judge. For energy. I picked a jade plant, named it Lydia, set it on the windowsill, watered it every other day. It's still alive. In fact, I repotted it last week. Bigger pot, deeper roots, just like me. Sometimes, late at night, I thought about Marcus, not with longing, not with hatred, just a detached curiosity. What was he doing in that condo near the industrial park? Did he still wear his old tailored shirts, even though he no longer had a job that required them? Was he still lying to himself the way he used to lie to me? I didn't check. I didn't search his name online, didn't stalk social media. Whatever remained of him no longer existed in the part of my world that mattered. I had no room for ghosts. Eventually, I met people. Not romantically, not yet, but in small, unexpected ways. And a neighbor who offered to carry my groceries up the stairs. Another single mom from Mia's school who invited us to a movie night. A barista who remembered my name and asked how my day was. It wasn't grand, but it was enough. I realized then that my life didn't have to be rebuilt overnight. It didn't need to look impressive. It just had to be mine. No shared passwords, no quiet fears, no walking on eggshells, just breath and time and space. And Mia. One evening, we were sitting on the floor folding laundry, and she looked at me and said, "You seem happier now." I looked up. "Do I?" She nodded. "You laugh more." I didn't cry. I just smiled and folded another shirt. That night, I wrote in my journal for the first time in years. Not about pain, but about gratitude. Gratitude for the strength I didn't know I had, and gratitude for the betrayal that finally pushed me out of limbo. Gratitude for the small, quiet life I was building one soft, determined day at a time. It wasn't big. It wasn't flashy. But it was whole. And for the first time in a very long time, I was too. The sky was soft gray the morning we moved again. Not far, just across town. But this time, it wasn't about escaping anything. It was a choice. The lease had ended, and I found a duplex closer to Mia's school, a little brighter, a little quieter. The landlord said we could paint the walls if we wanted. The movers were late, which gave me time to sit on the stoop of our old building one last time. I had a coffee in hand. Mia played hopscotch on the sidewalk with a piece of pink chalk she found in the glove box. I watched her and thought, not of where we'd been, but where we were going. There was no timeline anymore. No rush to rebuild. We weren't missing pieces. We were exactly who we were supposed to be. Two people who survived. And now, two people who got to decide everything moving forward. Mia helped unpack. She chose where her bookshelf would go and insisted her stuffed animals needed window light to stay happy. I let her lead. My own unpacking could wait. There was a quiet joy in watching her claim space. That first night, we had pancakes for dinner on a blanket in the living room. No couch yet, no Wi-Fi, just battery-powered fairy lights strung across the windows and a Bluetooth speaker playing old Motown classics. We danced. She laughed. We ate with our fingers. I didn't think about what we lacked. I thought about what we had. Time passed as it always does, slowly. Then all at once, I kept working. I added another client. Mia joined the school art club. We made Sunday park visits a ritual. I joined a book group I almost bailed on, but didn't. I started meditating badly, then slightly less badly. I planted herbs in mismatched pots on the kitchen windowsill. I painted the living room pale yellow. Marcus texted once. It was a single sentence. "I hope you're doing okay." I stared at it. Not because it meant anything, but because it didn't. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Closure doesn't always come wrapped in conversation. Sometimes it's just knowing you don't have to respond. A few months later, I saw him at a grocery store. He didn't notice me. He looked thinner, distracted. He walked past without seeing, and I let him. That's how I knew I'd moved on. One evening, Mia asked if I was ever going to fall in love again. I smiled. "Maybe." She tilted her head. "With someone nice?" "Hopefully very nice." She nodded. "Make sure they know how to cook." Noted. I didn't rush into anything. I didn't download apps. I didn't hunt. But love has a way of finding you once you've made peace with being alone. It started small. A familiar face from the book group. Elias. We'd nodded at each other for weeks, shared space in the same circle, passed around hummus and red wine. One evening, after the session ended, we both lingered by the door. "Want to grab coffee?" he asked. I said yes. We talked for 2 hours, then 4. No trauma dumps, no oversharing, just comfort. He didn't ask about Marcus. I didn't ask about his past either. We shared music, travel stories, bad jokes, stories about our kids. It was easy. No fireworks, just warmth. We didn't label it. We didn't introduce each other to our children right away. We just met for coffee, then for walks, then late dinners after the kids were asleep. It built slowly, like trust should. And when Mia eventually met him, it wasn't awkward. It wasn't forced. She liked him instantly, said he smelled like bookstores. We still live apart. For now. We each have our own routines, our own mornings and evenings, but we check in. We send each other pictures of funny signs or strange clouds. He sends Mia riddles to solve after school. I like that he never pushes. I like that I never have to guess what he means. Some days, I still feel the ache. Grief doesn't vanish. It settles into a quieter corner of your heart. But it doesn't control me anymore. I'm not afraid to be happy. I'm not afraid to be hurt again. I just know that I'll never again forget what I'm worth. There's no grand declaration, no cinematic kiss in the rain, but there's peace. There's laughter. There's presence. And that, for me, is enough. We go grocery shopping together sometimes. We swap books. We argue over music. One Sunday, he built Mia a kite and helped her run it up the hill near the museum. She tripped, laughed, and called him Mr. Eli. He just grinned like a fool. We're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to be real. And somehow, that's become more than enough. This isn't a happy ending. It's a new beginning. One that I chose on my own terms. Have you ever read something over someone's shoulder or found something by accident that changed everything? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done after reading that message? Tell me in the comments. I always look forward to hearing your thoughts. If this story moved you, please tap the like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. And now, while you're still here, check out the other powerful stories showing on your screen. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, with a brand new life story. Take care until then.